Welcome to the Fright Flicks review of The Walking Dead mid-season finale, Season 6, Episode 8. The episode is titled Start to Finish. Terrible title for this episode. I'll get to that in just a second. My name is Nate. I'm your host tonight. Normally, as you know, every week Fright Flicks brings you the quote-unquote Till Death Do Us podcast review of The Walking Dead. It's a play on the marital vows between myself and Jamie at Wifey Knifey on Twitter, if you want to reach her. And also, of course, the fate of zombies in this universe. So, slight deviation tonight on from Till Death Do Us podcast is Jamie was hella sick today. Like, she slept off and on all day. She rallied just in time for the mid-season finale. We went and we watched it with a few friends of ours. Makes it a lot more fun, by the way, watching Walking Dead in a herd, as we like to say around our house. But she was super sick, and as soon as the episode ended, she chugged like half a bottle of NyQuil, ranted incoherently for a while. I did stick a microphone in front of her face to get a few candid remarks on tonight's episode, but unfortunately, she won't be able to join me for the full analysis and review. Although, stay tuned, because you will hear from sick and medicated Jamie. Even sick and medicated, she has some interesting insights and a very valid opinion about tonight's episode. But let's get to tonight's episode. It's called Start to Finish. Huge problem with that title. Misleading, as a lot of this season has been misleading. Okay, so in Season 6, in the first 8 episodes, we've had 2 episodes that were supersized. They were an hour and a half instead of being just an hour. Welcomed by me and by all Walking Dead fans. Neither of those episodes, I feel, really needed to be an hour and a half. They were, and they were good episodes. Go back, listen to my old reviews. Loved episode 1. I believe it was episode 4. The Morgan episode, also very good. We come to the mid-season finale. This is the first episode this season that really needed to be supersized. It needed to be an hour and a half, and it was not. A lot of this episode, I have great things to say about it. A lot of good things happened, and I really enjoyed this episode. But what I didn't enjoy is that it seemed, in my perception, about 2/3 of the way through the episode, it stopped and went to closing credits. The episode was not paced well. There was a lot of build. There was no payoff. The episode just sort of stopped and went to credits. I had higher expectations for this episode because it was a mid-season finale. This means something. Usually, they pay off. They give us something substantial to chew on in the break before the season comes back in February. And I guess they did in this episode. They gave us some good stuff, but it was not up to par. I have elevated expectations. We're going into 3 months with no Walking Dead. They were supposed to deliver something exceptional, and they delivered instead something that was good. And let me start by hitting high points. My favorite part of tonight's episode was the confrontation between Carl and his teenage enemy, Ron Weasley, who they had a sort of love triangle over the sort of wolf girl Enid, who was a footnote in tonight's episode, by the way. At the end of last week's episode, we saw Ron Weasley sneaking up behind Carl and pulling out a gun, getting ready to shoot him. And that's how this week's episode began as well. Had the wall not collapsed and zombies not flooded into Alexandria, he might have shot Carl in the back like a coward, but he was delayed. This leads to my favorite scene in tonight's episode, where Carl and Ron are in a closed-off room surrounded by zombies, having it out, dramatically and physically. It was really good. It was very tense. You didn't know how it was going to turn out. Everybody sort of knows Carl's going to get his eye shot out at one point, so they're playing off your expectations of that. It was nice. And Coral actually had the line of the night where he had a gun aimed at Ron Weasley's face and said, "Yeah, my dad killed your dad, but you know what? Your dad was an asshole." Boom. Beautiful. It was a drop the mic moment. I really enjoyed it. Something else I kind of enjoyed was them planting the seed for Michonne to be sort of the mayor of Alexandria. She found Deanna's notes on what Deanna wanted Alexandria to be. I'm not sure what that is, but I don't need to be sure what that is because Michonne saw it and Michonne got it. And she and Deanna had a nice little moment. Deanna got bit, so this was her finale episode. Like Bob before her, like Tyrese, she got to have a good death. They gave her a whole episode to look back, to say things, to tie up loose ends, what have you. She didn't really seem concerned about her son Spencer, who wasn't around, but whatever, she was delusional. But she got to have a good death, and she got to have a moment with Michonne where it seemed like she was passing the torch. The two ladies understood what Alexandria represented and what it could be, and Deanna passed the torch. Michonne accepted the torch. Oh, I'm going to do this. I want Alexandria to be great. The scene really got the short shrift. There wasn't a lot to it. Wasn't super memorable. But it was a solid scene, and I really do believe that is laying the groundwork for what we're going to see in the future. Rick handled things like a boss. He had a scene with Deanna where she sort of confirmed the Rictatorship. Listen, you're zombie Moses. You're supposed to lead all the people to salvation. That includes the weak-ass, knock-kneed, sob-sister Alexandrians, and not just your awesome group. Rick was like, yeah, okay, I guess I get it. And I'll give you a pass since I thought you were going to eat my baby Judith, and you didn't eat my baby Judith. So, and that was all well and good. And then we get into the Morgan aspect of things. Morgan, just to sum up briefly, he's got a hard-on to save somebody since Eastman saved him from his own psychosis. So he has tied up one of the wolves in one of the houses and is trying to lure him to the side of angels, and the guy just isn't buying it. Now, in the last episode, the wolf had a cut that was infected, so Morgan went and got Denise, the doctor, take a look at it. And then the wall came down, everything jumped off. So Morgan is upstairs with Carol, and they have a little bit of a knockdown, drag-out fight. Carol gets a concussion. Morgan stands watch over downstairs. You've got Denise alone with the wolf. And you just know it's not going to end well for her. Like, I knew right from the jump. I'm like, oh no. This poor girl. Morgan left her alone with the wolf. Now, my wife Jamie, she was saying, well, Morgan is all about compassion. This episode showed to me, now, I'll put it out there. I don't know if this is intended or if it's poor writing, but this is what this episode proved to me about Morgan. Morgan is not about compassion. Morgan has a point to prove. He was crazy. He was a killer. Eastman saved him. Now Morgan wants to save somebody else, just like Eastman saved him. And he has picked this wolf. It's not about compassion, because Morgan is putting every other person in Alexandria in danger for his pet project on saving this guy. Moreover, that was true last week. This week, what we see, he will leave a poor defenseless woman. This doctor, Denise, she's not hardened. She's never had to make a life or death decision in her life. She is soft, like most Alexandrians. Morgan leaves her alone with the wolf. The wolf, not even secured that well. His hands are tied together. Not his legs. He's not tied down. He can move around. His arms, his wrists are tied together. That's it. Morgan decides, he makes the decision to leave Denise alone with this guy. She holds her own. She's not the Alexandrian sob sister I would have thought she was. But she's alone in a room with a killer. And Morgan is alone in a room with Carol, who's also a killer, and who wants to kill that wolf. And who will kill Morgan to get to that wolf. Jamie pointed out, since she's not here, I'll point it out for her, that Carol had one of the worst lines of dialogue in the history of Walking Dead, where she tells Morgan, I will kill you and him to make sure that there's no more death. Utterly ridiculous. I understand the point they were trying to make. It was just phrased poorly. What wasn't done poorly is the throwdown between Carol and Morgan. They go at it. Morgan wants to kill the wolf. Carol wants to kill the wolf. Morgan wants to save the wolf. Morgan already gave her she got a concussion, and he goes at her and spikes her on the cement in like a WWE style, like John Cena maneuver. So Carol's knocked out, during which, in the melee, the wolf grabs Denise, gets himself free, takes her hostage, and leaves. This is entirely on Morgan's conscience. He made this happen. He may say it's about compassion. It's not about compassion, though. It isn't. It's about his single-minded desire to pay it forward to save someone. He has picked this wolf to save, and he doesn't really care that much if anybody else gets killed in the process. And you know why I know this? Because everything I've described before, you know how Denise was trapped alone with the wolf? Well, Morgan was trapped with Carol. Neither one was trapped. They're in the same building. I didn't realize this until the third act. And then they went downstairs, and I realized, wait a second, Morgan was just up a flight of steps the whole time. He could have come downstairs and checked. But he didn't. He opted to leave Denise alone with the wolf the entire time. Morgan is a liability to Alexandria and to everyone else. And we had better see him get exiled. Just like Rick did to Carol, Morgan has it coming. Carol needs to exile Morgan and get him out of Alexandria before he gets anybody else hurt. IMO. And then we head straight on into the big ending, in which our main cluster of survivors, led by Rick and Carl, Jesse's there, Deanna was there, the priest is there, Michonne is there. They all decide to jump back to season 1 and cover themselves in the entrails of a walker so they can just walk out amongst the throngs of zombies and escape. They're trying to get to the armory. And they do that. Everybody wraps themselves in guts, and it's very intense. They are walking out through the crowd of walkers in front of the house. They get out into the street, and then it stops. This is the main problem with the episode. There were several really good moments. And just when it starts to build to the climax, and I'm speaking as a storyteller here, how you pace a story. This story, the way it was paced, it stops 2/3 of the way through. No bueno. No fair. I love you guys. TWD, Walking Dead, you're one of my favorite shows of the year, you know? I mean, I love you guys. I love this show. You don't need this bullshit trickery. You don't need a bullshit camera angle to convince me that Glenn is dead just so you could, oh, and then we'll pull him from the credits so you think he's dead, and then, oh, what do you know, he's alive. But then when we bring him back alive, it's not for any reason. He doesn't do anything. He just lectures a teenage girl and drags her around. He didn't do anything. And then, like, after all that, he's fake dead, and now he's alive, and he's trying to get back to Maggie, and Maggie doesn't believe that he's dead, even though everybody says that he's dead. They don't even get a reunion. They don't even see each other across a distance in this episode. Do you guys not know anything about story pacing? Are you kidding me? Okay. All right, I'm getting out of hand. Apologies. Getting a little upset because there were several very fundamental dots that should have been connected in this episode, and they were not connected. And I was disappointed. Not as disappointed as my wife, but we'll get to that in a second. Every week here on Frightflix, we rate every episode on a scale of 1 to 10. Overall, this season has been very, very good so far. And honestly, I don't think this episode was a bad episode. I thought it was pretty solid, but it had heightened expectations for being a mid-season finale. It was supposed to deliver on something. It did not deliver. Scale of 1 to 10, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. If this were like the penultimate episode for the season, I may give it a 7 or an 8 because it was pretty solid. But it was supposed to give me something really substantial to chew on for the next 3 months. It did not do that. So it drops down a point or two. We'll give this a 6 out of 10. I'm going to kick it over to Jamie in a second. She's going to give you her opinion. And then we'll wrap it up for this week. But we will be back next week. We're going to dig deep into the season overall, what it said, what it didn't say, where we're going in the future. Also, we're going to talk about what our favorite episodes of all time are of The Walking Dead, which I think should be really fun. All right, until next time, my name is Nate. Comment on this video. I'll be sure to reply to you, or find me on social media at NateFlix on Twitter or Facebook. Good night.
I was actually not really a fan of this episode. I felt like there was no big cliffhanger moment. It felt kind of buildery, if that's a word. I don't think that that's a word.
Sure it is. It was a buildery episode.
It was buildery. It felt like there should have been either a whole nother episode or it should have been an hour and a half episode, as you said. It definitely could have benefited from that. There was a lot of these kind of little, like, I don't know, therapy session moments between characters, which is fine. A few of those are great. Like, the one that stuck out at me that was probably the most important was Deanna telling Rick, they're all your people now. You can't have this delineation between your team and Alexandrians, even though Alexandrians, for the most part, are weak little crybabies. He's got to toughen them up. They're his now. Yeah. They're his ragtags. He's got to do something with them.
Zombie Moses, yep.
Exactly. He's got to lead his people. And I feel like he really needed to hear that from Deanna on her way out. Like I said, the show does a really good job of, like, deathbeds when they get the opportunity to do so, such as with Bob when they knew he was big.
And with Tyrese.
Yes.
He went out good.
He went out really well, yes. So I feel like they have a history of doing a good deathbed when they need to, and the person sort of gets to say their piece, and that was great and everything. The high point for me was probably the fight between Carl and Ron, even though nothing got resolved, nothing happened because of it. That was sort of a letdown. It was like, oh, tension, oh, excitement building, and then it's done, and, you know. But I feel like they're trying to make it a big deal that the walls were breached and there are walkers everywhere. Which, don't get me wrong, it is a big deal, but this completely seems like a surmountable issue where they're trying to make an insurmountable one. Why, instead of sneaking in the armory and wasting their resources, they could go get a car, they could, put in a CD, jam up the music, honk the horn, and Pied Piper those zombies away from the town. Herd them up and kill them all at once.
Glenn did that, once or twice.
In, season 1.
Very effectively.
Yeah.
And then they just haven't gone back to it.
That's something that bugs me when they do that. Just like their use of cloaking themselves in the scent of the walkers, they use that, like you said, very sparingly once, maybe 3 times throughout the show. I would be doing that shit all the time if I knew that it was that effective.
And we will actually be going way more into depth on that, on something that I'm thinking about calling the 20 things you have to ignore in order to be a Walking Dead fan.
Yes, I agree.
So, my beautiful, charming, but very sick wife who has to go to bed, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this episode entitled Start to Finish?
4.5.
Really? That low?
And that's probably because I'm sick and I'm grumpy, and as Nate said, I'm in super hater mode, and I'm sorry for that, but that's just where I am right now. I did not like this episode.
Yeah.
I didn't like
she's
it.
got a cold, so she's been drinking the Gatorade, but she's also been drinking the Haterade.
Ayo.
Yes.
I think you're so clever.
I don't.
You're not.
Okay, Jamie gives it a 4.5 out of 10.